Ripping thin strips like these to the exact same thickness is a task that comes up pretty often in woodworking. You might be covering plywood shelves with solid wood edging. Maybe you're embarking on a Kumiko frame, adding slats to an arts and crafts project, or creating glass retainer strips for a cabinet door. Whatever the case might be, you need to be able to rip those thin strips accurately and repeatably. And that's where Rockler's thin rip table saw jig will come in handy. The jig has a cast aluminum body, locking miter bar, and a plastic adjustable fence with ball bearing contact surfaces. It has both imperial and metric scales and an adjustable and locking hairline indicator. This jig is compatible with table saws that have standard 3/8 inch deep by 3/4 inch wide miter slots. And the miter slot to the left of the blade must be at least 2 inches and not more than 7 3/4 inches away from the blade to be compatible with the jig. And here's how easy the jig is to set up and use. First, install the hairline indicator on the side of the jig with the measurement scale you plan to use. I'll be using the imperial scale here. Now loosen both of these 4-star knobs and set the jig onto the saw table so the locking miter bar is in the left miter slot. Here I'm moving the jig into position so the ball bearings on the fence are even with the front blade teeth. Then slide the jig's fence over until the bearings just kiss the side of a front blade tooth. Not the body of the blade, but the tooth. Hold the jig in this position and tighten the rear knob, then the front knob. And with that done, we can calibrate the jig to the saw. It's as easy as sliding the hairline indicator over to the 0 mark and tightening the knurled knob. We're almost ready to start cutting strips, but first we need to create some clearance for the jig in front of the blade. To do that, loosen both knobs again and slide the jig about 2 inches ahead of the blade. Then retighten the rear knob that locks the jig in the miter slot. I'm going to cut some 1/4 inch thick strips from this piece of cherry. So I just need to slide the jig's fence over until the hairline indicator reads 1/4 inch and tighten the front jig knob. Then setting up the first cut is easy. With my workpiece held against the saw's rip fence, I slide the fence over until the left edge of the cherry touches the jig's ball bearings and lock down the rip fence. Make sure your workpiece is surfaced flat and smooth and has 2 parallel edges, and be sure to install a riving knife or a splitter behind the blade to keep the saw curve from closing up during cutting and pose a kickback hazard. Now start the saw and cut the first strip. The ball bearings on the jig act like a featherboard here to keep the workpiece snug against the fence as the cut progresses. So there's the first strip. But when I'm cutting multiple strips like this, I like to smooth this sawn face at the jointer, so each of my strips will have a smooth jointed face and a sawn face. To cut more strips, just reset the rip fence so the workpiece is against the jig's bearings again and make the cut. No matter how narrow the board becomes, each strip you cut will have the exact same thickness. Rockler's thin rip table saw jig cuts thin strips easily, repeatably, and accurately. See it at your local Rockler store or learn more at rockler.com. I'm Chris Marshall with Rockler, and thanks for watching.